Okay, so the last lesson, as far as that we're going to be covering in this class, and then of course this week being the finals. But so far we've done one step and two-step equations. So that's where we've stopped. Now there's a thing called multi-step, which means you just get bigger than two steps, but it's still the same work. So we're not going to necessarily look at that because as you go on either to algebra or in geometry, you'll use some of this as far as putting some equations together. The problems can get bigger, but your work and how you solve them stays the same. The one thing that you need to see that's not quite different, but the problems look different than what you've seen so far, is equations with variables on both sides. And this is going to be a short lesson. We're not going to get real deep into this. As you go on in math, you will. But you can also look up other videos that you want with variables on both sides. And there's plenty of different explanations. But I wanted to do a quick one of just me explaining and how we can use the tools that we have gathered so far and put them to work here. Now, here's an example of a problem with variables on both sides. Now, remember, variables is just meaning a letter. And when it means both sides, it means both sides of our fence, remember, of our equal sign. So here's our fence, and we've got a variable over here and a variable over here. Now much later, Matt, like if you went to Algebra B in our case, or even Algebra 1 in high school, and some of those can have two different letters. And when you have that, they're much harder to solve. Meaning you either have to have more information, or you have to at least know what one is, or you have to have another equation to be able to solve. But when they're the same letter, we can work with just this. Part of that is because it uses our tool of combining like terms. Because this has the same letter and exponent, we can work with these and either subtract or add them because they're like terms. Okay, if this was a x and this was a p, then we can't subtract the x from the p and get anything because we got to have the same letter. So all of these that we're going to be doing are going to have the same letter, but one's going to be on this side, one's going to be on this side. Now the other thing, so we're going to be using our combining like terms tools that we've picked up. And we're also going to be isolating the variable. So we're going to try to get it to where the variable's by itself. But this is also where I really had us do everything on the left side, because it makes these kind of problems much simpler. Meaning it's going to take one of your choices away from you as far as trying to decide, well, which side do I need to move this to? It takes that away to where you don't have to worry about that. If you know you're always going to put the variable on the left side, then you're always going to be moving whatever's over here, whatever variable's over here, to this side. Okay, so it kind of takes one of the decisions away to where you can just get started on the problem. So what I mean by that is over here I want to be left with my letter, and then over here on this side of the equal sign I want to be left with the answer, with the number. Okay, so that means I need to start this problem by moving this variable over here. Now, this is not going to be any different than if I was moving a number. Okay, if we were moving this 4 over here, remember, instead of adding 4, we're subtracting 4. Well, in this case, instead of having a positive p, if I take away p, what's p minus p? If I have a pair and I take away a pair, I'm left with nothing. And that's what I want. I want nothing over here. But if I do that on this side, I have to do that on this side. Okay? So it's just like what we've been doing, except now we're moving a letter. Okay, so we moved the p, we moved over here. What happens is p minus p is nothing. We're left with 4. And then over here, if you have two pairs and you take away a pair, you're left with one pair. And I'm not going to put the 1, but I'm left with 1p. Now, I didn't do anything to this 11, so it's still there. And this is still positive because we only took away a p. If we'd taken away like 4p, we would have been left with negative 2p. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. But we just took away 1, so I have a positive and I still have this 11. So we've accomplished one thing already. We have moved the variable over here. Now all that's left over here is a number. Now we have a variable. But we have to isolate this. So we need to move this positive 11 by subtracting it. That's going to get rid of it. It's a positive p. I don't have to put the positive now. And over here, 4 minus 11 is negative 7. That means in your original equation, if you're one that likes to check your answers, every time you see a p, you're going to put a negative 7. So 11 plus 2 times negative 7, and then put it over here. You substitute it in there as well. So this is going to be 11 minus 14, because 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. And then over here, you're going to have negative 7 plus 4, which is negative 3. And 11 minus 14 is negative 3. So this checks out. Means the only thing that you could plug into these p's to make this a true statement is negative 7. Okay? Let me do another one. And I'm going to put a little wrinkle here. So by that, meaning I'm going to have a couple on this side and a couple on this side, but they're all, if you notice, they're all going to be k's. So we can combine them and move them because they're all the same letter. But this is, think about this side of the problem first, okay? So we've got a fence here. This side, we can combine these. So we're using our combining like terms. Negative 7 and negative 4 is negative 11k. And then over on this side of the equation, we can combine these two things. Negative 2 and negative 8 is negative 10. Okay, we can't combine it with the 8. The 8 doesn't have a k. So here's my problem now. I've got a k over here and a k over here. But I want them all my k's on the left side. So this is, instead of negative 10, I'm going to add 10. And you got to make sure it's k. That way the whole thing disappears. But I need to do that over here as well. Okay, so I added 10k, I add 10k. What is negative 11 plus 10? Well, it's negative 1, but I don't put the 1. It's negative k, that's a negative 1k. Because negative 11 plus 10 is negative 1. And over here, I'm left with just 8 now. Now, we're almost done with this one. But remember, we cannot leave this negative. We got to put that negative. If we change it here, change the sign here, change the sign here. And that's my answer. Okay. I'm going to do another one. This one, I'm going to put another little wrinkle. Okay, and you can go back and watch these. And like I said, if you type in, variables on both sides, you will get lots of different videos. But I'm going to throw in some distribution here. Okay. So, let's distribute first. First off, I can't combine these two things. One has an m, one doesn't. But I can distribute. 2 times negative 6m is negative 12m. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Okay? So that's this side. Now let's do this side. 6 times 5m is 30m. And 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. Okay? Now, I can't combine these two things. One has an m, one doesn't. Can't combine these two things. One has an m, one doesn't. Okay? So now I begin I've got an m over here and m over here. I need to move this over to the left side. So I'm going to subtract 30m minus 30m is 0. But I need to subtract the same thing over here. Okay? So now this is negative 42m, which is a big number. You haven't done anything to this 6 yet. And over here, you're just left with this. This went away. So now I've done the goal of moving the variable over here, but now I need to move the number over here. This goes away. I'm left with negative 42m. And this, it could go away, but you can't. Remember, we talked about you can't just leave this blank. You need to at least put what that is, okay? Here you can because you don't need it anymore. That's why 0 can go away. But you can't just have negative 42m equals and then just space. You gotta represent that with a 0. Now, on this side, I want you to think for a second. These two things are combined, okay? It's not like this is off to the side, so we added it. This is a multiplication thing. This times this. Remember, if they're written side by side, it's multiplication. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. We're going to divide. This is dividing. Okay? Not subtracting, not adding, you're dividing. So you're going to divide over here. Okay, that becomes 1. Negative 42 divided by negative 42 is 1. That's what I wanted, 1m. And then what makes this, even though this is a big number, what makes this easier is 0 divided by anything is 0. And that's my answer. M is 0 in that case. Okay? Let me do one more like that. That one's one of the harder ones, so I'm going to do another one like that, where we got some distribution, and then we had to move things. Okay? So, let's do this. Okay, so nothing, you can't combine these two things. One has an R, one doesn't. So let's distribute 12R. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 4 times 4 is 16. Then on this side, negative 16R. It's this times this. And negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. So we distributed just like we did on the last problem. We got two sides. Each one has an R. Each one has a number in this case, but let's go ahead and move the R. Now this is a negative, so the opposite of that is to add it. So we're going to add it over here. Right? So those cancel out. This becomes 28R. We didn't do anything to the 16. And then over here, we're left with negative 40. Now, the reason why it makes it easier every time to move it to the left side, this can get, this. You always want to keep this as a fence. You always want to keep a left and right side. Okay, and you want to remember, hey, if I always know that I'm moving this over here, it kind of keeps you, you don't have to, later in math as you learn, it doesn't matter which side your variable's on. But as you're learning it, I think it's beneficial to always just say, hey, I'm going to move the variable over here, which means I'm going to move all my numbers over here. And as long as you keep that goal and keep reminding yourself of that goal, it does become easier. Okay, so now, let's move the 16 because this goes to a two-step problem, right? We got to move the 16, we got to move the 28, but it's easier to move this little 16 first. Okay, and we're left with 28R. And then on this side, negative 40 minus 16 is negative 56. And now we can divide. See, if we tried to divide first, we would have had, 16 divided by 28. That makes it harder. Now we can just divide by 28. And they cancel out. That was easy, no fractions. And then over here, negative 56 divided by 28 is negative 2. Negative divided by a positive is negative. And 56 divided by 28 is 2. So our answer is negative 2. Lots there. Like I said, those are the hardest problems, that you've had to do. It's here at the end. They will, the bulk of your last test coming up this week is going to be 1- and 2-step problems, okay? Well, mainly 2-step. But then there is going to be a few of these. So, you're going to get a little more practice. I'm going to put some up here. I'm not going to put a lot because they take a little while. But you're gonna do these problems for your assignment today. Okay, so, and I'll give you a couple pointers to remember. Okay. Let's see. Oops. Okay. Try to pick ones here that aren't super hard. Did we do? If we did that one or not. Oh, here. There we go. Let's do this one. And once again, these are ones I have to. I could come up with some of my own, but you want to make sure you avoid fractions. Okay, so first off, don't panic over the size. Make them smaller. Okay, now this one, remember you want to combine everything you can on this side first. And over here, you can't combine anything. And then start your process of moving things over. Put your variables on the left side, so move all your letters over here, move all your numbers over here. This one, same thing. You can't combine these two, but you can distribute and combine over here and then begin to move. This is k plus 3 inside here, plus 6k outside of the parentheses. Okay, so remember to distribute here and then combine anything you can and then begin to move. Okay, longer problems, so I'm just going to give you 3. We'll check these. Your study guide will be for the last test this week, and then we'll be wrapping everything up. Make sure, look through your grades. Make sure if you're missing anything, this is the last day it can be turned in, so kind of keep that in mind, and we will work from there. Thanks, guys.